The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. When Judas had left them, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and God will glorify him at once. My children, I will be with you only a little while longer. I give you a new commandment: love one another. As I have loved you, so you also should love one another. This is how all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
The Easter season calls to mind the reason that we gather on Sunday, the first day of the week, and not on the Sabbath, as the Jews did. Sunday is the day of the new creation. Sabbath is the day God rested from his creation. Sunday, the first day of the week, the day of the sun, is the day of the new creation. The new creation. And as Jesus says in the book of Revelation this evening, "Behold, I come to make all things new." New. And so he tells us that one of the new things that he brings is the new commandment: love one another as I have loved you. As I have loved you. There's where the novelty is to be found in the new commandment, is the way Jesus loves us. And we can ask ourselves then, how does he love us? What is characteristic of the love of Jesus Christ that we may love as he loves? And perhaps we can say of this love of Christ that if we look to the first letter of St. John, we read that it is not that we have loved God, but that he first loved us. That he first loved us. That's the difference. It's not as if that we are here and we are living along and then we sort of suddenly discover God and we love him, and when he sees that we love him, he loves us back. No, he loves us first. When you were born, you came into your parents' arms and the love was there waiting for you. And then you loved back. But first came the love of your parents. And so it is with the love of Christ. It is a love that we might describe as a welcoming love. It welcome. It literally, in the English word, you are welcome into my sight. It's as if he says that to us. Practically for us, to love as Jesus has loved us in this dimension of love then, would be to be the first to love. For example, when we are estranged from someone, or there's some kind of a disagreement or a separation of some sort, there's the question of who's going to break the ice. I was thinking of putting some ice in the refrigerator. You know, if you put it in and then maybe 5 or 10 minutes later you go and press on the top of it, it's just a little crust and it'll break real easy. You get right down to the water. But if you let it sit there for a week, it's going to harden. And so it is that unless in these different difficulties that we have and differences with one another, unless one or the other breaks the ice soon, the ice will continue to harden. And it will be more and more difficult to establish that relationship anew. We find it, don't we, humiliating oftentimes to be the one to take the first step. If it implies that we have to seek, maybe it does, that we have to seek pardon, that we're the guilty one. And so we need to take the first step. But we can ask ourselves, if we love as Jesus loved, should we not be ready and spontaneously disposed to break the ice, to love first and not second. We might think of it as arriving at a spot, at the spot of reconciliation, let's say, and if I've been offended by someone, then I might think, well, it'd be humiliating for me to take the first step. It's the part of the other person to take the first step. But isn't it the case in the Christian life that we should seek to arrive first at the spot of reconciliation, to love first as Jesus does? A second characteristic of the love of Christ, as St. Paul tells us in the letter to the Romans in the 5th chapter, is that Christ loved us and gave himself for us while we were still enemies. Enemies. And we can think of what it was like to be nailed to the cross, to be looking down from the cross, right on the ones who had nailed him there. If those aren't enemies, then what are they? Talk about enmity. And yet, at this very time, at this very hour of maximum enmity, we might say, what does Jesus say? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He loves us while we are still enemies. That is to say that this love of Jesus is not only welcoming, it is also at its heart forgiving love. Forgiving love. For us, it makes, practically speaking, if we are to love as Jesus loves, then do we not need to make clear to our enemy or enemies or those who stand in a position of some sort of enmity with us, our will to forgive. Our will to forgive. Notice Jesus on the cross. I think this, if we think of him crucified, looking down on his enemies, we need to clarify the difference, and it's an important one, between feeling and willing. Jesus forgave his enemies, but he didn't feel good about it, I imagine. At this hour of absolute agony, he probably didn't feel like forgiving anyone, feelingly. I don't know what he could feel but pain. But he willed to forgive them, and he did forgive them. And this for us is a profoundly important lesson. We oftentimes feel that we can't forgive, and we'll wait until we feel that we can to forgive. But we need to think about what it is to forgive. Will our feelings govern our will, or will my will govern my feelings? To love another person at base is to will that person's good. If someone has killed my mother, for example, and is guilty of such a heinous crime, for me to forgive that person, to love that person, is to will that that person would come to good. Through this horrible evil, to will that this person would come to God and good. Jesus says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He hands his enemies to God, for God to deal with. And he leaves it at that. And so it leaves us this example of what it is to will the good and to will the forgiveness. Oftentimes in confession, I'll put that question to someone who can't forgive someone, and what I ask is, if you could, would you?